Good morning, everyone. We now begin the morning service of the Miroku Association headquarters, asking God and Meishu-sama to protect and participate today in the construction of paradise, Amatsu-Norito and Miroku Prayer. Please stand. Takahama ni kamuzumarimasu kamurogi kamuromi no mikoto mochite tsumemi oya kamu izanagi no mikoto tsukushi no himuka no tachi hana no odo no ahagi hara ni miso toki ni narimaseru harai dono o kami tachi moro moro no magagu totsumi kegareo harai tamae kiyome tamae tomao sukoto no yoshio Amatsu kami kunitsu kami yao yorozu no kami tachi to Ame no fujikoma no mimi furi tatete kikoshi mese to kashikomi momaosu. Omi kami mamori tamae saki hae tamae miroku omi kami mamori tamae saki hae tamae. Oshie miyoya nushi no kami mamori tamae saki hae tamae. Oshie miyoya nushi no kami mamori tamae saki hae tamae. Kam nagara tamachi haemase. Kam nagara tamachi haemase. Great God of light, creator and giver of all life, in accordance with your divine will, the long age of night draws to an end. Your radiant divine light, shining ever more brilliantly, awakens the dawn of the glorious age of light, a time long awaited by all humanity. We thank you for guiding us to your divine plan and for the privilege of channeling and receiving Johrei. May our spirits and bodies be illuminated and purified as we live your truth given to us by Meishu-sama. Make us pure and effective instruments of your divine light so that we may serve you and all those with whom we come in contact. May paradise on earth be realized with health, peace, and prosperity, a reality in our lives. Great God of light, bless and protect us. Radiate our souls with your divine light so that we may truly become instruments of your great plan. Please be seated for group Johrei. God the Meishu-sama bless you. Today's teaching is entitled God's Love. It's from Daily Inspirations, page 70. How mysterious and wondrous it is. All our prayers are answered, and our requests are right, virtues, and the true power to save the world rests with God. Let us pray, deeply pray to the great God of light. Some things that seem good, even right through human eyes, may not be so in the sight of God. Let us remain humble and discreet. Pray to God to save their lives or cure their illnesses. God's reply may be to remind them that such fervent and urgent prayer, done repeatedly, implies they don't have much trust in Him. God's blessings aren't dependent on the performance or frequency of one's acts of supplication or faithful affirmation. He knows we are dependent on Him, and He will take care of us. God's love for humanity is so great and so profound that people can receive limitless blessings and protection as long as they open themselves up to receiving such blessings. When people put enough trust in God and leave the matter in God's hands, God never fails to help them. If we detach ourselves from undue ego, worries, and attachment, and leave the outcome to God, it is easier for God to extend our help. Since God is all powerful and omnipotent, God can do anything. But if a person isn't in a condition to receive God's help, there is little God can do. If someone wants to receive, only needs to become worthy of God's help through a change in faith, attitude, and behavior. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this morning service of the Miroku Association headquarters. This morning, I would like to share the faith experience of Eva José Cabiaca. She's from the Morro Bento Regional Center, Angola. Eva is a member and she gives service as a missionary. She was introduced to our church in Angola in 2008. The reasons behind her being guided were illness, poverty, and conflict, a situation that lasted about 8 years. Regarding the disease, it all started when she conceived her second daughter. Since from the first months of pregnancy until birth, she couldn't eat anything at all. But with God's grace, when it came time to give birth, the baby was born strong and healthy. As for conflicts, her mother-in-law always encouraged her husband to send Eva back to her own family because she was not a healthy person and that she was just delaying her son's material progress. According to her mother-in-law, the money that was supposed to go towards the construction of their home was being directed towards Eva's medication. At that time, they lived in a one-bedroom house with her mother-in-law and brother-in-law. It was in this beautiful picture of anguish and suffering that she found Meishu-sama. Once being guided to our church, she was received by a missionary who, after listening carefully to her, inspired her towards the basic practice of our faith, which she carried out without difficulties. After a month of dedication, she gradually recovered. To express gratitude, she made a special donation and started to engage in the center's activities, resulting in being able to guide her entire family from home. The experience of faith that she's going to share with us is related to the ancestors and enshrinements, the Sorei Saishi. In preparation for the annual ancestor service, she made a decision to do the enshrinement of some of her ancestors. So she went to meet the person in charge of that area, and together they carried out the registration of the enshrinement of these ancestors. That night, she dreamed of other ancestors of hers who had not yet been enshrined. This complained, saying, You only did the solicitude of the other spirits. How about us? You have to do it right away. She said she could only do it after some sales. She said no. She needed to do with the funds she had. She categorically resisted and said she wouldn't spend the money and asked them to wait a bit until she makes sales and make a profit just so she could request the Sorei Saishi. She woke up from her sleep, not accepting the warning of her ancestors. It is worth mentioning that she had 4,000 kwanzas at home, and that was exactly what they were talking about. As her attachment spoke louder, she didn't care and kept it as if nothing had happened. Eva even went to the market to sell, and to her surprise, the business was going very well that day. She even got to the point of sending clients to other sellers, as the clients only stopped at her kiosk, and because she didn't want them to be taken wrongfully by the other sellers. In the midst of this abundance, one unexpected emerged. Suddenly, robbers appear in the square and start running to get merchandise from everyone. Faced with this situation, together with the other settlers, they abandoned everything and ran away to hide from the thieves. With the appearance of the police, they fled. Thereafter, the settlers returned to their kiosks. Surprisingly, just merchandise from her business was stolen. No one else was disturbed. She asked the others who arrived at the scene first, but no one would say what happened or better, how Eva was robbed, because they didn't see who took it or how they took it. Her despair was such because not only did she lose her merchandise, but also part of the money of what she had sold and the groceries she had made for dinner. The only thing left was the money of the first sale she kept inside her clothes. She arrived home sad and told her husband what had happened. She couldn't honestly be thankful, much less reflect on the dream she had. When she became calmer, she reflected and came to the conclusion to what had happened was a warning from her ancestors for her disobedience to money. The strange thing is that as she wanted to sell first and then enshrine the ancestors later, they sent clients and then took a good part of the money of her merchandise. Just at the time she felt happy that the business was going on well. She realized that she was taught a lesson that attachment only leads to ruin. The next day, she took the 4,000 kwanzas she was keeping at home and ran to the Johrei Center to do the Sorei Saishi. After complying with their guidance, she decided to buy more merchandise with the money that was left, the one that she kept inside her clothes. Fortunately for her, her sale didn't take long to happen. Many customers showed up, and everything went as smoothly as possible. She learned that we suffer because of our ignorance, disobedience, and attachment, especially in financial matters. If she had been smarter, she wouldn't have to go through that situation because not everyone has the opportunity to be alerted like she was. Eva fully agrees with Meishu-sama's teaching when he says, self-centeredness and attachment are the causes of human suffering. Her commitment is to continue giving service and doing the basic practices of our faith, trying to make other people happy. I was very thankful to the Supreme God, Messiah, Meishu-sama, and her ancestors for being introduced to this wonderful path of salvation. It's a nice experience from Eva of Angola, and another experience of life with you today is from Daniel Chagas. He's from the Melo Matos Johrei Center, Brazil. In 2019, Daniel had a period in which he questioned everything that was going on in his life, and for that reason, he stayed away from our church for a year. In April 2020, the end of 13-year relationship affected all areas of his life, including his job. He became anxious, was not motivated, and lacked strength to face challenges. After his separation, he returned to live with his parents. Their coexistence was not harmonious, as they had remarkable differences in their way of thinking. Then, for no apparent reason, Daniel felt a strong desire to participate in that year's annual ancestor service. He was intrigued by the sudden urge, and even without understanding what motivated him, he went to attend the service. During the celebration, he realized that feeling was from his ancestors, bringing him the path of salvation. He went back to attending church regularly and requested an interview with his minister. After listening to him, the minister asked Daniel his efforts in our basic practice of faith. Daniel was asked if he was watching our daily online service, he was reading Meishu-sama's teachings, how was the enshrinement of his ancestors Sorei Saishi, and if he was expressing his gratitude through monetary offerings. Of course, everything was out of balance with him, especially his feelings. He didn't accept the purifications, didn't see the love of God through them, and didn't think they could represent an opportunity for growth. He realized that he was being self centered, as he only wanted to receive but didn't have empathy and didn't do anything for the well being of others. Thereafter, he went back to reading the divine writings, making the dedications of cleanups, and channeling Johrei at church and at his home. He always had difficulty understanding the meaning of monetary offerings of gratitude, so he initially didn't do this practice. Afterwards, he made the decision to let go of his way of thinking and trust God. Thus, he offered his very first donation. With this practice, he was strengthened and emotionally rebalanced, and things began to change for him. He's a personal trainer and became more willing to work and promote his services. Thus, students appeared to the point where there were almost no more available hours for him. He changed the way he interacted with his parents, expressing his love for them through gestures and acts of kindness. In this way, their relationship became lighter and more harmonious. Today, he finds himself very well in all aspects of his life. He remains firm, dedicating twice a week at the Johrei Center, and learned that sincerely serving God truly brings salvation. For this reason, Daniel is very thankful to God, Meishu-sama, and his ancestors for allowing him to awaken again to faith and to commit to being ever more useful to the divine world. Thank you very much for listening to these faith experiences. This morning, I wish you a very blessed day, very blessed week. With this concludes our morning service. Thank you very much.